it's time to sew the dress together. Start by taking your front piece and pin it to your side front piece. The side front piece is the one with the pocket. Then take your side back piece and your center back piece and pin them together. The neck facing and the front facing, pin them together in the shoulder seam. Now sew the front seam and the back seam together and the shoulder seam on your neck facing. Then overlock all raw edges except the neck, the bottom and the arm side. And then on the neck facing, it is the long edge. The seam allowance of the back and the front seam is overlocked together. On the back, press the seam allowance towards the side seam. The front, you can see the shoulder seam. I've already decided which way I'm going to press the seam allowance, and that it's towards the front. Now pin your center back seam together, right sides, and then sew with 1 centimeter. And then press the seam open. Now we are going to sew the side seams. Before we are doing that, just pin down your pocket flap so you're not going to get it into the seam by mistake. And then give your, this is the left side seam, some pins all the way. The right side seam has an opening in the waist, and this is for the waist tie. There are 2 notches that indicates where the opening needs to be. Place your front and back shoulder on top of each other, right sides together, and on the back there are some E's, so just pull a bit on the fabric and be sure that the 2 seams are on top of each other. And now you are going to sew all the seams. When you sew the right side seam, just remember not to sew the opening for the waist tie, and then open the seam allowance and pin it down, because now you're going to sew a top stitch all the way round the opening. I sew with 0.5 centimeter from the edge of the opening, and then you just sew all the way around. You do this to reinforce your waist tie opening. And then you press all seams open. And this is the finished pocket bag. Now it's time for the collar and for the front facing. On the collar there is a notch on the center back and also for the shoulders, so match the notch over the seams. Now place the 2 waist ties. This is the waist tie for the left side, and pin it where you find the notches. This is for the right side. And then place the neck facing with right sides together on top of the front edge and neck, and then pin it together. Match the shoulder seams on top of each other. And now sew it all the way round, also in the bottom. And then it will look like this. Clip notches to the seam allowance in the neckline, and then press the facing over your seam allowance, because you're going to make an understitch in the neckline. the understitch is only needs to be where you have your collar. So only from, you can say, the collar tip to the collar tip. And now you need to turn all the corners. I always pack my corners. I try not to cut corners. And then press the neck facing and the collar and the front facing. This also now we are going to prepare the hemline. So again, turn the corners at the bottom, and then we need to make what we call a narrow hem. And a narrow hem is a hemline with a double fold of 0.5 centimeter times 2. So I just pre-fold the first fold with 0.5 centimeter. I don't press the hemline. I fold the hemline when I sew. So what I do is I fold and then I measure to be sure it is 0.5 centimeter, and then I sew along the folded edge all the way around. Where you have a seam like here, I just cut a corner because then it's much easier to fold. And then I sew all the way round. I stop a centimeter or so before the front facing. And now I do the second fold, and I actually just fold around the first seam allowance. I always start the final stitch like this on an angle of the bottom, and then I sew exactly in the same stitch that I just made, and I sew it all the way round. Again, it's a lot of meters, and at the end I do the same. I turn the fabric, the dress, and I do a back stitch, and now I press, and next time I will show you how to sew the sleeves.